We'll start off with the preliminary cockpit preparation. So it starts with the engine master levers cut off. Engine start selector is normal. Check that the landing gear lever is down. Windscreen wipers are off. And then we move on to the battery check. The sequence of switching off the batteries and switching them back on is quite important to prevent spurious dispatch messages. We start off first by switching off from right to left with battery 2, and then battery emergency 2, battery emergency 1, and battery 1. We check the voltage on the overhead panel to make sure that they're above 25 volts. Well, I normally start with battery 2, 29.1, battery 1, 28.9, emergency battery 2 is 29.5, and emergency battery 1 is 29.2. So they're all above 25 volts. If they weren't above 25 volts, it will need to do a charge cycle which lasts 45 minutes. Switching the batteries back on again from left to right, battery 1 on, battery emergency 1 on, battery emergency 2 on, battery 2 on. We then connect the external power if we have. Well, we should have external power. If we've only got one, we connect external power 2. If we have 2 external powers, we connect external 2 first and then external 1. That prevents unnecessary reconfigurations. And then we switch on the IRSs because a lot of the systems depend on the IRSs. Start off with IR1. Onto IR2 and then IR3. After that, we check the cockpit lights, the standby compass and eye reference light. Check the annunciator lights as appropriate, bright or dim, and then the FCU lights, and then move down to the cockpit lights, the flood lights, the dome lights, the integrated lights, and the DU master bright. Each of the DUs have their own individual dimming and brighting buttons as well as contrast buttons. And that's the end of the preliminary cockpit preparation sequence.
Now we're going to start all the EFBs by pushing the start button on the EFB laptop container.
So the CM2 starts up his EFB as well.
So while the EFB is starting up, we're going to initialize the FMS, push the init button. I'll put the cursor on the MFD page. On the active init page, I'm going to insert the SAA flight number. I'm going to highlight the flight number box and insert SAA 323, and I'm going to execute it. It jumps automatically to the aircraft status page. I'm going to click on the aircraft status page. On this page, data status, I'm going to check the aircraft type, A350-900P. I'm going to check the engine type, Trent XWB-84. The fuel penalty. I'm going to check we have the active database. I'm going to ensure there are no pilot stored waypoints. Delete them if they are. And I'm going to check the idle and performance factors on this page. Once complete, I'm going to return to the NIT active page. Now I'm going to insert my from to in the highlighted boxes. I'm going to insert Fox Alpha Oscar Romeo. Insert, and to Fox Alpha Charlie Tango insert. A company route comes up. It's one of the stored company routes. I'm going to insert it. I'm now going to go to my EFB, flight op status page. On the OIS screen, we now status page. We check the aircraft type, registration, weight variance. We check the EFB version. Is the current EFB version. In the bottom left-hand corner, we now press the Synchro Avionics button. This imports the flight number and the origin and destination into the OIS. We can now check our OIS. The flight number is correct and the from to is correct as per your MFD. At this point, we'll go out of the EFB and initialize the ACOS. By pushing the OS avionics button, we now go to the company communication. We can insert that. We go to pre-flight, init data, and as you can see, it's re-imported from to and the flight number. We now have to just insert the captain and co-pilot's name and then send. Enter. Okay, and you have to put Dion's name. We can then send that to AOC.
And then once the captain has finished the initialization on the MFD and synchroed the avionics, we cross-check the EFB version and then also make sure that the aircraft type, the registration, flight number and from to have been imported correctly.
That's the IOS initialization completed. I'm now going to do the ECAM logbook check. I'm going to push the recall button for 3 seconds to display any recall messages. I'm then going to push the deferred dispatch button to recall any dispatch messages. I'm then going to get the aircraft logbook or TL3, consult any CDL or MEL items. I'm then going to accept the aircraft.
The CM2 then also checks the ECAM, the dispatch messages as well as the TL3 and any MEL and CDLs with the captain. What we're going to do now is the fire test and APU start. So we'll start off with the radios and we turn the RMPs on. Make sure that the standby RadNav buttons are off. That an appropriate frequency is tuned. The 1 is always there, so you can only start. It's possible to start with a number behind it. So let's say 2, 5. You can tune it. Then make sure that the interphone is unlatched and we set it so that we can speak to the ground engineer if we have to. From there we do the fire test. We start on the top, we check that the fire switches are all in and capped and that there are no lights. Then do the fire test by pressing the fire test button and we'll get the continuous repetitive chime. Check that all the fire lights are on, all the squib lights are on, all the discharge lights are on, that the main landing gear fire light is on, the master warning. On the ECAM we have engine 1 fire, engine 2 fire, APU fire, main landing gear fire, and then on the engine master levers we also have the 2 fire warnings. And we start the APU. So put the APU master switch to on. See the APU has come up on the system display, and then we start. Once the APU is available, we then can turn on the APU bleed, then set up the air panel, and check that the cross bleed is auto, the airflow is normal. With a normal one it will go to max until we put passenger numbers in. Then set up the cockpit temperature, the cabin we put on versus cell. After that we can go to the external power. As you can see the APU is running, it has taken over the left hand side of the electric. You can go to the external power and deselect external 1 because the APU is now running that side.
So now we can do the ORS preparation and LPC performance figures. We go to the surveillance ADC com panel and we go up to digital ATIS and we can type in our departure aerodrome and ask for an update on the ATIS. Once we have the ATIS, we're going to go to the EFB and we're going to do our performance calculations. Johannesburg, I insert a runway, which will be 03 left. Going to insert the wind. The wind is 3108 knots. Going to set the outside air temperature of 24 degrees. The QNH 1015. Runway condition is dry. Selecting anti-ice off. And I'm going to select the takeoff weight from the seater. Today our takeoff weight will be 210 tons. Toga thrust, toga flex. We're going to select toga flex max. Okay. Cancel. We're going to go to climb thrust. We're going to select auto derate climb, which is selected. Configuration, we're going to select optimum configuration. Air conditioning, we're going to select air conditioning off. We can consult MEL or CL items on null for this flight, and then we can compute.
So CM2 will then load up the same in the takeoff performance page as the CM1, and then they will cross-check the performance figures.
Once we have both computed our performance figures independently, we're going to cross-check them. We do this by pressing the cursor to go to the next page, and then we cross-check them by the pilot flying, reading the takeoff runway, the takeoff shift, the V speeds, the flex toga value, the flaps, the packs on or off, and the anti-ice off, the engine out acceleration, and then we consider OEBs. Ian, are you ready?
Yes.
We got Zulu Sierra Delta Charlie is an A350-900, runway 03 left in Joburg, 0 shift. 151, 153, 157, and a flex thrust of 47. Flaps is 1 plus F. Where the line is, I'm going to review the air conditioning pack off, anti-ice off, engine out acceleration 7058. We're now going to review the OEBs. We go to the top left hand menu. On the drop down menu we push Ops Library. From there we go into the FCOMs, and in the FCOMs we go down to OEB.
Alright, so select OEB, performance, Ops Library. If you have something else displayed here, you can go to the bookmark looking thing to get to the shortcut for OEB. For instance, if it looks like that, select that one, go to OEB, and then we're going to transfer it to the center screen so that we both can see the OEBs.
Right there, we're now going to review the OEBs together. We have two OEBs in this aircraft. One is RA height disturbance when overflying another aircraft.
After the OEB review, the roles changes from CM1 and CM2 to pilot flying and pilot monitoring. I will now do the pilot monitoring checks, which are the next ones in sequence. So we start off by checking on the doors page. On the doors page we start off by checking the rain repellent, which this specific aircraft does not have, as well as the oxygen for the captain and first officer. After that we then check the hydraulics. The hydraulic fluids of the green and yellow are within acceptable range. And then we check the engine oils. Selecting the engine page. As you can see, the FADECs are not powered. Right, so we're going to switch on the FADEC ground power switches. And then we check the engine oil quantity for a minimum of 13 quarts. We're going to have to switch the FADEC ground power switches off again. Then we come down to the flap lever. And on the bottom of the PFD you can see the flap position, and we check that the flap lever corresponds with the flap indication. And again, we don't move the flaps without checking with engineering first. In the spoilers we also check that they're retracted, and you can see at the bottom of the PFD the spoilers that will be indicated on the top. Again, if they don't correspond, don't move them until you get clearance from engineering. We check that the green and yellow accumulator pressure on the green. If they're not, there's also a procedure to repressurize them, reinflate them, and depending on which ground power or electrical power configuration you have, you could do it directly, or you might have to switch off some hydraulic pumps. And we check that the park brake is on, and then at the bottom of the PFD you can also see the park brake indication is on. After the park brake check, we then check the safety equipment and then go and do the walk around.
As pilot flying, I'm going to do the overhead panel scan. I'm going to start with the evacuation command on captain. The crew oxygen supply I'm going to put on. I'm then going to arm the ground recorder. I'm going to go up to the cockpit equipment power supply buttons are all in. The reset buttons are all in. We then come down to the exterior lighting. I'm going to make sure the strobe's in auto. Beacon is off. Nav logo will be on number 1 system. We only use number 2 system if 1 is inoperative. Logo will be on auto. Exterior lights will be off. Come across to the seatbelt signs. Once refueling is finished, we turn them on. PDs will be on auto. And emergency exit light, we put in the arm position. We come across to your probe window heat, make sure it's in auto, lights are out. On the air panel, we're going to check AP bleeds on, cross bleed is auto, airflow is in norm, cockpit temperature as desired, and cabin is on purser select. We're going to check all white lights are out, the fuel pumps on. From there we go up to the maintenance panel. All white lights should be off, but for ground preparation we could have the CB remote light on or the ground comm light on. From there we're going to come down to the air conditioning panel. We're going to check that the temperature selector is selected as desired for the forward and the aft bulk cargoes. From there we're going to go to the cockpit voice recorder. We're going to test it. It's not longer than 3 seconds. And there's no ECAM warning, which means the test is successful. We're going to check the cockpit equipment power supply switches and the reset switches are all in. It's the overhead panel scan completed. The center instrument panel, we're going to check air data is on auto, FMS is on norm. ISIS, we're going to check the coordination set and the altimeter indication is correct. We're going to come across and check that the anti-skid nose wheel steering is on. Okay, we're now going to check the pedestal. Starting with RMP1, we're going to check the frequencies as required. Make sure the NADRAB is off. Parking brake selector is on, check accumulator pressure. Emergency gear, gravity gear extension, we're going to check is off. Thrust levers are both idle, with engine masters off and ignition norm. Cockpit door selector is in norm. RMP3, select and tune frequencies as selected. RMP3, select frequencies as selected. From there I'm going to go on to my ADC COM page. I'm going to push ADC COM. We're going to go to our message record at the top tab. We're going to erase all messages. Select all messages, and then if there were messages, we would erase them all. We go back to the top tab that says connect, and we check that the ADS is armed in green. Then we go to the surveillance page, and we put the transponder to standby. Confirm it? Yes. So once I've turned the surveillance transponder to standby, I now prepare my OIS clipboard. I go on to the drop-down menu. I select terminal charts. I'm then going to go to your FAR clip. I'm going to select FAR clip management. I'm then going to select the taxi chart I need by adding it to my clipboard. I'm then going to go to the departure SID, and I'm going to go to the second page and add the Ragul departure. Once I'm finished adding all the pages, I go back to the clipboard management and it will display all my departure plates I have on my clipboard.
It's not. The earphones are removed, the airplane looks good outside. But as pilot monitoring for my clipboard management, I could use the same as the pilot flying, as you just saw now. Or since I'm a bit lazy, I'm just going to import them. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the same terminal chart page as what you saw on the earlier one. This time I'm going to go right down to the bottom and I'm going to say import chart setup from offside. I select it. It gives me a caution that the import chart from offside, this will replace all airports and clips. That's okay. And there we go. I've got it. So then I go down again and accept. And then I can check as well. So the Johannesburg one, as you can see from my clip management, all the charts that were selected on the other side are now in this side as well.
Push the init button. I'm going to run through the basic setup of the MFD. We start on the init, active init page. The flight number was already inserted. The from to was already populated from our previous OS initialization. We can insert an alternate. If not inserted, let's change that to Bloemfontein. It will then offer you a company route. You can see there's more than one route there. You can either select none or select company route 1. I'll insert company route 1. We jump down to the cruise flight level. We can insert a cruise flight there with FL360. Mode, we either have Econ or long range cruise. We select Econ and we'll insert a cost index of 30. On the wind, it highlights the trip wind. The options here is to either insert a trip wind, or we can go across to the wind page where we can insert history winds, climb winds, and cruise winds at every waypoint. If I return, today we're going to insert just a trip wind of say 35 knots, which gives us a tailwind. We then have to go to the cruise temperature, and we have to insert a cruise temperature, otherwise there might be anomalies in the climb. Under tropopause, we don't insert anything under tropopause, we leave it at the default setting at 36,000. Right, once that's all populated, we drop down to the IRS menu. If you click on the IRS menu, here I have the option of aligning on the reference, which is already done, or we can align on a different position. If you just click on it, we can then enable to insert a lat and long. If we click on return, we can go down to the next page, which is the departure page. Here we can select the departure runway, 03 left, and then we can select a drop-down menu of the Regul departure. Once it's yellow, it means it's a temporary flight plan, and you can see it's all in yellow. Temporary flight plan, and then we can insert a temporary flight plan. Right. Once that's done, we go back to the init page. The next box to fill in is the nav aids. If we click on the nav aids, we can now select the different VORs for display on our NDs. So at the moment we have Juliet Sierra Victor displayed on ND1 and Juliet Sierra Victor displayed on ND2. We can change that to read Golf Alpha Victor if you wish, and you can select a course if needed. We can also select ADFs and local LS buttons or LS frequencies. The next tab on nav aids is selected for nav. Here we can go through deselect nav aids for whatever reason. So we can deselect a nav aid of Golf Alpha Victor. So that's where we clear the list of nav aids that have been deselected. If we return, it'll go back to your fuel load. We click on fuel load, we then can enter the zero fuel weight of 165 tons. And zero fuel at CFG, we can take a, if you haven't got the final or prelim load sheet, we can insert 30. And then block fuel, as you can see, we've got 13.2 tons of block fuel. Taxi fuel we can amend depending on how long our taxi is. Let's make that 400. Number of passengers, at the moment, if we have the prelim load sheet, we can, from the prelim load sheet, put the number of passengers, 200. And then we can just change the route reserve if you want. Let's make that 600 kilograms of fuel reserve. The cost index is there again. And then of course we have our final, half an hour final fuel and our alternate fuel. We don't insert anything under the gross weight, jettison gross weight. As you can see at the moment, we have insufficient fuel for our flight to Cape Town. And then we can return, and then we can look at the takeoff performance. At this stage we can insert our takeoff performance or runway 03 left from our ORS, calculated earlier. So our V1 speed is 151, our VR is 153 and 157. Once we've inserted the V speeds, we can then insert a flex thrust or a toga thrust. For the purposes of demonstration, I'm going to put a D-rate thrust in. I'm going to D-rate to D12, and I can confirm that. For some reason it's defaulting to toga today. Flaps, we can select our flaps 1, 2, 3 as per what's on our ORS, and the trim we can insert from the load sheet. Packs, we can select packs on or packs off on APU, and anti-ice on and off. We then can adjust the thrust reduction, acceleration altitude, or we can push on noise and then put a noise abatement procedure in if necessary. Transition level and engine out acceleration can be altered. Alright, from there we can go to our climb page. On the climb page we can pre-select the speed. So today I'm going to pre-select 210 knots for the climb. And again we can change the noise or cancel noise. Here we can insert a speed constraint if required. 250, let's make it 250 at flight level 150. Temporary flight plan is created in yellow, and then we can insert our temporary change. Alright, that goes back to the init page. We have now completed all the items. We can now go to the flight plan page. In the flight plan page we can fill in what has ever been left out. So one thing we haven't inserted now is the departure into Cape Town. So we can insert a arrival into Cape Town and an approach. ILS Zulu. And I put a star in there, it will be the Airbus 1 Bravo arrival. It's created a temporary flight plan again. I then can insert the temporary flight plan. Once the flight plan is loaded, we can check on the ND page in plan mode with the zoom as appropriate. With constraints, you can then scroll through and check all the constraints, bearings and distances between waypoints using the scroll button. You can see we haven't loaded the alternate flight plan, so we can go to the alternate flight plan and we can load a departure for Cape Town, departure runway 19. We can load a departure. We'll load a TTM1 Alpha departure, and I'll insert that. Create a temporary flight plan again. I can then check it on my ND page if it's right or if it's wrong. Okay, I'm going to insert that temporary flight plan. I then can scroll down and I can load an arrival for Bloemfontein. Runway 20 with RNAV for 20. And I can insert a via Unload. Create a temporary flight plan. I can insert the temporary flight plan. I can then clear the discontinuity. I can remove Bloemfontein. I can right click on it. I can delete Bloemfontein, and I can delete the discontinuity. And I can insert that temporary flight plan. Once it's all loaded and I can check the flight plan, then I can go to the top position monitor page and I can insert time or check the GNS position or the RAIM accuracy if you're doing an RNAV departure. Once that's completed, we can then look at the secondary flight plan. We have 3 secondary flight plans. For the first secondary flight plan, we can import the active flight plan onto the secondary flight plan, and then if you want to, we can amend that flight plan with a return to Johannesburg. Let's say from Appin, we can then go down and we can then insert a new destination. Appin, we can insert Fox Alpha Oscar Romeo, and we can put an arrival into Joburg. Over there. Runway 3 right. The approach Zulu 03 right, and a star. We can put the NIBX to Alpha arrival in. That's all on the secondary. We can check that now. You can see it comes up with the info message of check takeoff data. You can clear that. And that's the basic flight plan loading and setup of the A350.
The pilot monitoring will then go through the FMS and check the loading of the pilot flying, make sure that everything was loaded correctly in the FMS. And once we're both seated and that's done, then we start with the FCU.
We'll check our loudspeakers at 1 o'clock. We're going to set the QNH 1015 and cross-check silently that the altimeters on the PFDs are within 20 foot and within 30 feet of the ISIS, and recorded on the CETA. We go to zoom and we zoom down to the ANF. We take the cursor on the ND over the menu pop-up. We select it, we go to status, select it, and we can check the active database for the ANF. Once completed, we can then close it and then go back to our normal operations with our zoom. And we can then select constraints, airports, VORs and traffic. We then go across to your windows, and that'll be 100, 275 Mach speed. It's on heading, vertical speed, and we can select flight directors on, and then we can select altitude for our instrument departure, and vertical speed will be 0, and then meters will be off or on depending on where you fly. That's the lateral FCU panel completed. We then do the lateral console check of the oxygen, which is standard as per our A330 and A340 procedures. Once that's complete, we then complete the N2F takeoff briefing. So when the final load sheet arrives, we check the final load sheet against the inserted figures. On the active fuel load page, we check the zero fuel weight, the zero weight CFG, check the block fuel is correct, and we insert the passenger number from the load sheet. Once that's done, we go to the takeoff page. I then check the takeoff CFG is within 1% of the ECAM CFG, and I insert the ECAM CFG on the takeoff page. So it's 30.1, insert that 30.1. I then hand the load sheet to Dion to check.
I will then take the load sheet and check that all the figures have been entered correctly into the FMS. And as a final check, I will do a cross-check with avionics. Right, so it says takeoff perf, cross-check with avionics, avionics OIS discrepancy, cross-check none. So there are no discrepancies. There are some cross-checks, some things I must cross-check on the MFD, which are the takeoff runway, the takeoff shift, and the engine out acceleration altitude, because those are not cross-checked with avionics. So the next step then is to adjust the seating position, and we use the same technique as we do in a 330, but you'll feel that you're sitting a lot higher in the 350, but that is normal. After the seat adjustment, the pilot monitoring checks that all the external connections are disconnected, the external air as well as the external power. So we have to make sure that the external power are available on both, disconnecting just like a 330 with it still connected to the aircraft electrical. If the engineer removes it, could cause injury.
The before start checklist.
Okay, we access the before start checklist with the checklist menu button. We select the before start checklist by scrolling the mouse over, highlighting, press the validate key, and there we have the before start checklist. Cockpit prep.
Completed.
Completed. Gear pins and covers.
Removed.
Fuel quantity.
Checked.
Takeoff data.
Set.
Barrow ref.
QNH 1015 set.
QNH 1015 set. Down to the line.
Request the before start clearance. I'm going to go to the surveillance panel and select default settings. Confirm. I'm then going to select my taxi camera on. I'm then going to check my doors and slides are all closed and slides are all armed. Put the beacon on. Thrust levers are idle. Check the parking brake is on with the cumulative pressure in the green. Then check I have MIMO green, parking brake on, and nose wheel steering disconnect. Lower line, please.
As the pilot monitoring, I have the same procedures up to the doors. And then I can read them before start check is below the line.